You're listening to Consolidate That. Ukraine is my motherland. It is now under a savage attack by Russia. Ukraine is shielding Europe and the rest of the civilized world from Putin's barbaric aggression. Ukrainians are brave and effectively fighting back. Let's help. Make a donation to Armed Forces of Ukraine. Link is in the show notes. Hashtag Stand with Ukraine.
Welcome back to Consolidate That, Ivan. Great to see you again today. I know you're getting over a bit of a cold that was given to you by the children, but so hopefully your voice sounds great for the podcast today.
Oh yeah. That's the one thing I had left, the voice. So anyway, that's what I'm going to sound like today. So that's why I'll shut up for the most part. I'm super excited today. I have one of my favorite people in Galaxy on the podcast. She's a classmate of mine, Dr. Tara McCarthy. Tara is a veterinarian with 16 years of experience in private practice, both large and small animals. She has a background in health and wellness along with her career in veterinary medicine. Tara owns a CrossFit gym with her husband and an online health and wellness business with a team of over 800 people. Her particular passion is helping working moms, especially DVM moms, with their health and nutrition. In her role as a head of community engagement at Galaxy Vets, Terry is focused on attracting like-minded people that want to change the course of veterinary industry and live a life of passion and fulfillment. Tara, good to see you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I love how you think about and it's I think you're kind of cutting out the working dads, and I know that it's because it's not as hard. But but the way you're thinking about the whole life journey from sort of graduating, and then it's not straight line. Like there's things that happen after you graduate from vet school, and then that's why the phases are sort of changing, and there's probably a different environment that needs to happen. So can you help us unpack that? Because I'm fascinated about how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've talked about this lots of times on the podcast, just about how vets are and the type of people they are, and they have this long range view of their career and they focus on it their
Nerds.
whole
They're nerds.
childhood. We're totally nerds. And we just are so laser focused on that career that really it doesn't matter what anybody says to you in undergrad or during vet school. Like nothing seems to throw us off. Like, oh, I don't care if I'm $400,000 in debt or that. You know what I mean? Like we don't pay attention to that because all we can think about is we've been working towards this for so long and we're excited to basically save the planet through veterinary medicine. And I think when you actually get out into reality, that's obviously very different, and you have to face that debt. You have to, maybe your career, your job isn't as glamorous as you once pictured it. And then as you move through some stages of life, not obviously everybody, but many people, getting married, having children, moving for your spouse, whatever it might be, it completely shifts your focus in life. And you really have to pivot and then find a place where veterinary medicine is going to fit into that, because it's not what you started out as.
So, okay, I want to unpack this more and kind of talk about all those different phases, because first you said that we're focusing on the career. I want to argue that because we actually in the vet school don't focus on career, we're focusing on education, because career to me actually comes past that. And I think that that's the only goal that we're chasing, to become a veterinarian. And then as soon as we graduate, based on our research recently that we've done, it looks like first 5 years of graduate of actual work, this is when everybody wants to leave the profession immediately after they became a certain career. So what happens in those first 5 years? What do you think it is that post graduation kind of changes the mindset? What is the big surprise when we get into practice and people go, "Oh, this is not what I was expecting." What is different? What do vets think is different from what they envisioned it? Did they just read, James Harriet when they were 10, and then all of a sudden 20 years later they're like, "Well, that's not what it was in the book." Like what happens?
Yeah, I guess I would agree with you. I won't argue with on that point with the education side. But I think it's like we're going to learn all this stuff and then go get to do it all. But let's face it, you don't get to do it all the time because your clients are the ones who make the decision on what you get to do. And rightfully so. I mean, the animal is in their ownership and they have to kind of fit what works for them. So you come up against so many walls. One, I mean, the client's one of them. Obviously, the way your clinic is structured is another. But you end up running into so many barriers, I think, and you start to get frustrated. But then you're working a lot because, well, I mean, I was kind of lucky when I don't know if I'd call it lucky, but I moved to New Zealand when I first graduated, which I loved the lifestyle there. It was a great, I would say I was less likely to burn out in that type of lifestyle that they had there, even though I worked a lot, but I obviously didn't make the money that I needed to pay off my debt. So then when I came back to North America and I started working kind of North American hours in large animal, it was just putting in a lot of time and you're not necessarily doing the things you thought you were going to get to do. And just because there's so many other people who, or not even people, but just the situations, like it's situational control, I guess. You don't really get to decide what you get to do as much as you thought you were.
What did you find was besides the money, what did you find was the positive aspects of how you were practicing in New Zealand? And are there ways to carry that over to North American medicine?
I would say for sure some of it. And again, that was a long time ago, so I'm sure it's changed there as well. Like veterinary medicine worldwide is way different than it was when we graduated 16, 17 years ago. For me, they have generous paid time off, which is what Galaxy obviously is aiming to do as well. But every veterinarian there, every employee there, doesn't matter what you do, gets 4 weeks minimum starting, and then it builds from there. So, the older vet that I was working with, she had 8 weeks vacation at that time. And so you just have a lot more work life, like a lot of more life, I guess. And it was just a little more laid back. I don't think you could get away with that now, just with the way society is and owner expectations and social media and that kind of stuff. Like it just didn't have that same, like, if you were on call, you could still go ride your horse on the beach and then meet the owner at the clinic an hour. You know what I mean? It was a little different. So I think some of it for sure, I think we could lighten up a little bit and we could take a little more time off and not drive ourselves so hard. But veterinary medicine across the board has definitely changed since then.
So let's talk about this phase. Okay, so you graduated, all of us graduated, and we kind of dipped our toes in it and tried it. We kind of got frustrated with a lot of stuff. Lots of euthanasias was for me because I was in ER, and owners can't afford the stuff that you learn to do, and then when you're trying to send them to specialists, they can't afford that. So you don't practice everything you learned, but then also now the life starts happening, and then people are at that age where they're thinking about the family. So what happens then? And what are the requirements then? How do you need to modify your work life to actually accommodate for those sort of family and marital changes and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough to answer because it's so individual based on whatever your life might look like. Speaking of the euthanasias, though, like it was the same for me. Like in New Zealand, there was a lot of home euthanasia, so I bawled all the time with every euthanasia because you're a new grad. And so then everybody wanted me to do the euthanasias because they're like, oh, she's so sweet. She cares so much. We want her to be the one. So then I was getting requested all the time to be the one to come do the home euthanasias. And it was terrible. Like, and then eventually your tears dry up.
Cry. Let's bring her over.
Anyway, yeah, that was kind of a tangent. But yeah, eventually, sadly, you have to close that valve and your tears just kind of dry up. And I think that's probably what happened to me. But regarding like the life changes for me, I was pretty happy still to work myself to the bone, say 4 years out, 3 years out, I guess 3 years out I was doing large animal at the time. And I like during track season, I was working 70, 80 hours a week. Like I was working a lot. But I liked it, and my work was they were my friends too. Like they were my social life too. But then, yeah, once I had a child, everything flipped upside down. It's just like you have no idea what else is out there and how your life is going to change so much. And I actually resented the profession quite badly for a few years. I resented that I wasted so much of my life to become a vet because I just wanted to be with my daughter. I wanted to have the control to be with her when I wanted to. And I was doing large animal at the time. And I had a really bad period where she was about 18 months old. And there would be days in rows that I wouldn't see her. I would be gone on emergency calls before she woke up, and I wouldn't be home from emergencies until she was in bed. And I just was like, this is like, I can't do this. And I know it's different for everybody. And that work situation wasn't ideal. I was in a 2-vet practice, and I was on call every other day and every other weekend. But
So right there, sorry for interrupting you, but so right there, what would work look like for you to say, okay, if I changed at that point, being a veterinarian, and I did this, what would that be? Like, what would be that satisfying your parental life, combining work with the young parent?
I think for me, well, even at that stage, you don't realize what else is available because all you've ever known is veterinary medicine. And for me, I would say I grew up with teachers. As my mom was a teacher, my brother's a teacher. Like everybody in my family are teachers. And so, I know they have a tough job too, but they have the summer off and they have holidays off. And I just was so resentful, like that I couldn't even be sure I'd have Christmas off. So I just wanted like a regular job where I knew that I would be home on time, that I knew I would have regular hours. And it wasn't that at the time. And it's not like that for so many vets.
So what? Okay, so why then profession, right? I mean, that's the thing, because it's okay profession. Why can't you work like a teacher? Hours coming in, leaving on time, having the weekends, holidays. Like there are jobs like that in veterinary medicine. So why did you feel like it's a profession's fault, not your choices?
I felt like it was my fault for taking that profession, but I will say, so I switched from large to small, and then I did have a really good balance. But I have lots of friends that are in large, and they make it work. They're probably in bigger practices, or you know what I mean? They have more people to share the on-call with and stuff. So I don't want to throw a large animal under the bus by any means. It was just my experience there. But when I did switch, it was wonderful. We were a group of women. Most of us had a family, and we made schedules that worked, and we knew we would be out on time, except for the odd time. Some things happen, but it was very rare.
So what was that good experience? So what is it that you've done and how you changed that at scale? Because we're in Galaxy, you're kind of in charge of finding people and inspiring them to do the right thing, and we're here on the back end are building the right thing. So what would that look like for the practices to schedule the right thing and knowing that we need to cover certain time as well, and how to create that balance between people in the clinic so they stay accountable, but then balance it in a way that you're satisfied for that period of life when you're involved with your kids, especially when they're very young.
Yeah. There's a lot there. And I think we've had some really awesome conversations within Galaxy to try, and create this type of environment. For me, starting out, when I first started with the smaller position, it was very part-time. So I was covering shifts that were covering the lunch time. So I was working like 10 till 2. So a tech and I would cover those shifts through lunchtime so everybody else could get their lunch breaks. And I was covering like some evening shifts when they most people weren't working. And then as my children grew, I started to take on more and more. The thing that worked for us, and I think with most happy clinic cultures, is they have realistic expectations of themselves. We were all paid straight salary or hourly, so we didn't have to worry, and that allowed us all of it, like there was 5 of us when I left for Galaxy, and we all had our own niche, and so we could focus on our own passions and not worry about how much money we were bringing in. So I hate dentistry. Probably because I wasn't trained, but I never had to do one because I had one of my best friends who was a vet working with me at the. She loved dentistry and she hated talking to clients, so she would happily spend all day out back doing dentistry, and I loved talking to clients and I loved lameness and like some other things, and then we had another one who loved skin. So we none of us had to do the stuff we weren't passionate about or not good at. I mean, sometimes you did when they weren't in, but it was a really great way to work collaboratively, to bounce things off each other, and then ultimately to do the things in veterinary medicine that you love to do. And it just worked really
Would you
well.
say that that's something you see able to scale as you grow the, community engagement, which is great. You're the head of that side of things for us. Would you see that as something you'd be able to scale and grow within Galaxy Vets and on a greater scale across the entire industry?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it depends on the people that are in each clinic. And sometimes heads are going to butt for sure. We just kind of all worked out to be in a similar stage in life. And we all had different areas of interest. I think the benefit Galaxy offers to be able to scale this type of process would be that we are paying a straight salary. We're not pushing our vets on these commission-based pay, because when you're on commission-based pay, it you may still have a collaborative team and get along well with your team, but it does create competition. The big billers are dentistry and surgery. So if you're not that way inclined, or all of you are and you want to argue over that, it creates a lot of unrest and conflict, I think, within the clinic, and drives kind of the wrong behaviors in medicine. So I think, the fact that we aren't focusing on that as much and we're allowing veterinarians to create their own kind of balance between work and life, but then also within the clinics, it's going to create a lot more positive culture.
So I'm going to throw in a couple bombs that you can step on. So one, when we interview, and I'm coming from a place, I'm from Ukraine originally. The questions that are asked on the interview are completely prohibitive in North America, even just putting on the resume and stuff like that. But so we can't during interviews ask people about their family situation, right? Do you have kids? Are you married? Things like that. And I understand that from privacy and from everything that the HR stands for. But wouldn't isn't that an opportunity to have a discussion where you are in your life right now? Not only do what are you skilled at, and just basically for your professional skills, but what do you look for in life? What do you need to accomplish your family life? And then basically cater the position not for who we need, but for with this particular life situation, you could fit in our solar system over there where you can be happy practicing the things that you love as well as to find the work life balance to accommodate to your life stage. So isn't that an opportunity?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yes, we can't directly ask, which is hard because as vets, like we love to just like get right into it with people and like ask those questions. So I've had to learn those lessons for sure on the HR side. But the thing I just love is just like asking people what they're looking for, like what they're passionate about, what they want right now. And you can do that without getting into their personal life and their family life, for what kind of hours they're looking for, and benefits and that kind of stuff, paid time off. It's not that difficult to do when you actually just sit down person to person and find out what they want. And I mean, with the shortage of veterinarians and technicians and all veterinary staff right now, I mean, you really you can't afford to be picky. Like you can't have people that are going to fit into slots anymore. You have to figure out, is this somebody who's going to jive with our culture and is going to be a great fit? And then how can we find that position for them? And I think that's what we are doing. And I think, it's going to create a lot happier teams. And then as that person's life stages change, because all of us go through many stages in life and we don't know what the next stage is going to bring until you get there. And, then you adapt.
And I love that. And I think that the concept that we're building out in our solar systems of having the choice to move around the practices. So you're not locked in. Maybe you love dentistry today and then you hate it in 3 months, but you're stuck in this hospital. And then to try something else, you could move on to do telemedicine. You can move on to do surgeries if that's your passion. If you don't want to see the owners and cut all day, you can do that. Or if you love emergency, but only once a week, there's also a choice. So I'm really excited to see how that will work out. And actually, that will allow, I think, the population of vets not only in one hospital. And you had I think it was very lucky that you had a mix of people that could fit their needs from outside as well as their interest on the inside of the hospital and mix it together. So I think that it would be really hard to assemble multiple clinics like that. But if you have a bigger sort of area to cover, there's 10 hospitals, 10 plus, there's emergency hospital, there's all of these things, telemedicine, where you can mix and match and find people that will fit. I think we have a higher likelihood to actually find what we need, for not what we need, but where to place the person with these particular needs. And I think that fundamentally changes the hiring perspective, that you're hiring not who you need, but you're desperately looking for the vets. And once you find out what their needs are, where you can plug them in so they're happy, which is, I think, that a lot of clinics need to overcome, because otherwise we're interviewing people, we're having them for 3 months, and then they're leaving. But the second kind of loaded question that I wanted to then ask you, do you think then, when we're making a schedule, when we're making the adjustments, like by HR, by HR rules, everybody has to be treated equally and everything like that. But what if you have someone who just has kids, and then should the business, let's say if it was not a legal or HR issue, just human beings talking, right? So should we say that your single guy who doesn't have kids should have less flexibility than someone who is a parent and a woman that just had kids, and there's more commitment there? So therefore, in the scheduling, can you introduce that sort of inequality, or that's totally off limit? Like, you can't do that, because to me, let's not talk about introducing inequality, but just cater more and say, look, there should be more flexibility to people that are constrained by their family situation or their life situation. Like, would that even fly from what you learned so far from HR perspective?
Uh, so as a working mom, I think it sounds awesome. However, no, that wouldn't. And there's lots of conversation within the vet, social sites and stuff, because not everybody chooses to have a family, and so it shouldn't actually be priority like that. Everybody has their stuff, and so maybe they don't have a family, but maybe they have a parent that they need to care for, or maybe they just have life that they love to live. Do you know what I mean? So, but I think exactly what you were saying, when we have these solar systems and you have that ability to move around, then I don't think it will cause, like, people are going to have more flexibility regardless. And even though maybe they're going to be in that stage for a little while, so say a new mom who's going to want more telemedicine shifts so she can still bring an income, that might not last forever, because I know lots of moms who want to get out of the house and they want to go to work. So yeah, maybe initially they're going to cover more of those telemedicine shifts, but then they'll be happy to go back. Same with, like, as their children grow, perhaps, when they get to the college years, they're going to want to take some more ER shifts, or, you know what I mean? So I don't think we can prioritize family, but I do think, because we're such a profession of a large number of women, then that is the reality for a lot of us. And so it is something that we do need to address. But I don't think we can say it comes first. But I think it will be the most common reason.
Yeah, and that was a setup right there in my question. But I think that the way that it's designed, where people can choose, there's another thing that's hidden in sort of this gender difference, is that if you were to negotiate, and actually that's what happens in reality, because statistically women are not as good negotiators as men. They actually, men win negotiation more, and that's not my opinion. That's actually from the course that I took at Stanford, and it was taught by a woman. She said, just know when you're in negotiations, that's just the tendency. So that also, I think, a lot of the gap, inequality and the pay gap and everything else happening, because it's just the ability to negotiate. So I think even about the scheduling then, that even puts women in a more difficult position, because they don't negotiate. Not only they don't negotiate for their salary, but also for the shifts they take and stuff like that. So I think that also needs to be taken into account. So this design that we're working through on the scheduling for a solar system, I wonder if that will solve a lot of those things, because people will, with a big enough population, if you think about 10 hospitals, NER, and the telemedicine, I think it will shake out enough to get a population of people that there's enough people liking different aspects in that solar system to fill up all the schedule.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I will say, the first year I had to renegotiate my contract, so I was going on to year 2 with my boss. I needed a big raise because I was trying to pay Canadian loans with New Zealand dollars. And I just cried. I couldn't even get the words out. Like, I just cried. Like, it's something, yeah, like, we're not trained to do. And not to say, I think women are getting much, much better at it, and especially, like, standing up for themselves and stuff now, especially with the vet industry the way it is. But, man, I am not a great negotiator.
Next time, bring Ryan with you. You should see this guy in the rental car.
Oh,
in,
yeah,
where
we had
were
a good
we?
time
In New York.
with.
I didn't know you can negotiate in rental car. Yes, he did. So
It's all negotiable.
that was amazing. Well, Tara, this is this is a great conversation, and I think that we'll have more, because I'm really excited to see when we build these out and when we see actually how it shakes out. So I want to mark this episode and be like, okay, well, this is what we're thinking, this is what we're designing, and then come back to it and say, did this work? And then kind of check again in a year and talk about it again and see, okay, this is what we learned.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited.
Well, thank you for finding the time. I know you're busy looking for the talent to join us in Galaxy, and we're really happy to have you on this episode.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Tara. Thank you so much for listening to Consolidate That. If you want to hear our new episodes, please find us on any podcast platform. Also, you can learn more about us on our website at galaxyvets.com.